Hey, folks, in today's story, we're going to hear about a woman who the very second she signed her divorce papers immediately canceled the 15 supplementary credit cards that were in her ex-husband's name. At that exact moment, he was busy booking a lavish engagement party costing $75,000 for his mistress. But a single sentence from the event planner froze him right in his tracks. Friends, in life there are crossroads we never wish to face. And divorce is perhaps one of the most painful. After 20 long years dedicated body and soul to her family, the only thing the protagonist of our story had left in her hands was a thin sheet of paper weighed down by countless bitter memories, the divorce decree. However, what makes this story exceptional isn't the tears or the desperate pleas. The story begins right at the instant her ex-husband hurriedly hops into a car with his mistress, turning his back on the woman with whom he had shared half his life. In that moment, there was no breakdown, only a terrifying silence, the silence of an iceberg of contained patience finally beginning to crack. Instead of sinking into sadness, this woman chose a different path. She transformed her pain into strength, her years of patience into a meticulously calculated plan to claim the justice she was owed. From canceling the cards she had provided for her husband's entire family to the direct confrontation with those who had taken her selflessness for granted. Every one of her steps was a firm shout demonstrating her own worth. The story we are about to hear isn't simply a chronicle of recovering material assets, but the journey of a woman who, having finally decided to live for herself, encounters her true self. It is a narrative full of dramatic and unexpected twists that emerges from the darkness of betrayal into the light of freedom, leaving us with deep lessons about the human heart. I clutched the folder containing our marriage certificate tightly. Only a few minutes had passed since I'd walked out of the county courthouse, and the papers still seemed to hold a faint warmth. Standing on the building steps, a gust of cold wind forced me to pull my coat tighter. I had rushed out that morning wearing a thin jacket, so my body was shivering, but my heart was burning hotter than ever. I felt as if a boulder that had crushed me for years had finally been lifted. My ex-husband walked faster than me. As soon as the formalities were over, he turned abruptly and hopped into a car parked at the curb. He didn't even roll down the window. Through the tinted glass, I managed to catch a glimpse of a young woman in a pink coat sitting in the passenger seat. I didn't have to think hard to know it was his mistress. I didn't feel rage. On the contrary, I felt liberated. 20 years of marriage, from the first day full of hope to its collapse, had come to an end today. I pulled out my cell phone and lit up the screen. My fingers, without the slightest hesitation, opened the banking app. Some time ago, my ex-husband Jelani had told me he needed liquidity for his business and asked me to apply for a main credit card in my name and several supplementary cards for him and his family. Back then, without thinking twice, I gave him 15 of them at once. One for him, one for my sister-in-law, and even several for his drinking buddies. Thinking about it now, I was a genuine fool. I allowed them to play with my credit score like it was a toy while they spent without control. I entered the supplementary card management menu. The last digits of the 15 cards appeared clearly, and next to them, the word active. I stared fixedly at the card he used most frequently, the one ending in 886. He always said those numbers brought him luck, but I knew that just last month he had used precisely that card to buy his mistress a handbag worth over $3,500. I bit my lip and pressed the cancel button. The system asked for confirmation. Without hesitating for a second, I accepted. Immediately, a message appeared. The supplementary card ending in 8886 has been successfully canceled. This card can no longer be used. Reading that message, I felt like a heavy burden vanished from my heart. I continued canceling the 15 cards one by one, not leaving a single one active. With each cancellation came a notification, and my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Ping, ping, ping. That sound was sweeter than any melody. Just as I canceled the last card, I received a voice note on WhatsApp from my best friend, Zuri. Her voice sounded euphoric. Mikka, I've got huge news for you. One of the regulars at my boutique is the event director at a luxury hotel, and she just called to tell me she saw your ex-husband. He was booking an engagement party with a young girl. He wouldn't stop saying he wanted a $75,000 party, that it had to be something grand for the 18th of next month. I held the phone and couldn't help but smile. What perfect timing, I thought. While on the other side of town, he was dreaming of a wonderful future with his mistress. From right here, I was cutting off the tap. I replied to Zuri's audio. I know. Thank you, Zuri. You'll see. Today, he won't even be able to pay the deposit for the reservation. I sent the message, put the phone in my pocket, tucked the folder into my bag, and headed home. My steps were light as a feather. Before, every time I passed near the courthouse, I used to think, what will I do if the day comes when we can no longer live together? Now that the day had arrived, I felt strangely at peace. On the way home, I came across a street vendor selling honey-roasted nuts. I stopped for a moment and bought a bag. The warmth of the nuts in my hands comforted me to my core. From now on, I will live for me, I promised myself. Not even 30 minutes had passed since I got home when I heard violent banging on the door as if they were going to break it down. Immediately, I heard the shrill voice of my ex-sister-in-law. Maka, open the door right now. Do you think you can hide in there? I was about to throw an orange peel into the trash when I heard her voice and I frowned. It was obvious that my ex-husband, Galani, had realized his cards weren't working and had told his sister. I dried my hands and walked over to the door, but I didn't open it immediately. Who is it? I asked through the door. If you have something to say it from there. Why are you pounding on the door like that? Who do you think it is? The voice of Baisa, my ex-sister-in-law, sounded increasingly impatient. Open the door already. My brother is making a fool of himself at the hotel. If you don't fix this right now, you're going to regret it. I sighed and opened the door. Baisa was planted on the threshold. She was wearing a flashy dress with a floral print, her hair teased up high like a lion's mane, a thick layer of makeup, and lips painted an intense red. In her hand, she clutched a shiny handbag that I recognized instantly as one bought with my supplementary card. Before I could invite her in, she barged inside and tossed the bag onto the sofa. The metal chain hit the coffee table with a shrill noise, and my scared old cat hid under the sofa. Baisa stood with her hands on her hips, puffing out her chest and looking at me with fury. Have you lost your mind? My brother just called me. He tried to pay the deposit for the engagement party, and none of the cards worked. He called the bank, and they told him the primary card holder had canceled all the supplementary ones. Who else could it be but you? I crossed my arms and faced her. Yes, I canceled them. So what? So what? Baisa screamed as if she had heard the most unbelievable thing in the world. My brother has been using those cards for years. And me, too. Just last week, I saw some shoes I was planning to buy this week, and now you cancel them just like that. Who do you take my brother and me for? I smiled with disdain. I went to my study and took a folder of documents out of a drawer. They were the original contracts from when the supplementary cards were issued. I had always kept them as proof just in case. I tossed the folder onto the coffee table and pointed at the text. Read it yourself. Right here it says clearly that the primary card holder is me, McKenna Jones. The right to use the supplementary cards depends on the card holder. In other words, if I want to cancel them, I cancel them. And who I give them to is my decision. It has nothing to do with you or your brother. Baisa bent down and glanced at the contracts. Her look became increasingly confused, but she kept insisting. These are old papers. My brother told me he changed the ownership to his name a long time ago. This contract is fake. I pulled out my phone, opened the banking app, and shoved the screen right in front of her face. Look closely. The primary card holder is still me. When do you say the ownership changed? Let him bring a bank statement that proves it. If he manages that, not only will I reactivate the cards, but I will also apologize. If not, stop making a scene here. Baisa was left speechless. Her face went from red to white. A moment later, she softened her tone a bit, although her resentment was still obvious. Okay, let's suppose the cards are yours, but my brother has lived with you for 20 years. How can you be so cruel? He's about to start a new life, and you leave him unable to pay even the deposit for his engagement party. Don't you think about the embarrassment he'll face in front of everyone? Thinking about my 20 years of humiliation, rage invaded me. And did he think about embarrassment when he went to book a $75,000 party with his mistress? Did he think about being cruel to me when he was siphoning off our joint assets to spend them freely on her? I've lived 20 years with him, saving every last penny. I've barely bought myself a piece of clothing over $50. He sure had a great time buying handbags for his mistress without blinking. Now that he's out of money, he remembers me. Too late. Bisa took a step back at my words. With re-ened eyes, she suddenly reached for a glass on the small table. It looked like she was going to smash it. I quickly stopped her and pointed to the door. Don't you even think about it. I'll call the police right now. Let them come and decide if my crime is canceling my own cards or if the crime is yours coming to my house to threaten me, and then I'll make sure all the neighbors in this subdivision come out to see the show of how your family harasses people. Bisa's hand stopped in midair. She looked at me, then looked toward the door and finally kicked the floor. She grabbed her bag from the sofa and said through gritted teeth, "You'll see. I'm telling my mother. When she finds out about this, she won't leave you in peace." With that, she turned around and left. The slam was so loud the walls shook and a painting wobbled. Looking at the dented doorknob, I squeezed the glass I had in my hand tightly. The water had gone cold, but my heart was firmer than ever. If Bisa had left, it was certain that my mother-in-law would come. The problems looming ahead wouldn't be few, but I was no longer afraid. From the moment I led those 15 credit cards, I decided I wouldn't endure any more humiliations. I went to the sofa, picked up the folder of contracts Bisa had thrown, and put it back in the drawer. I put a little more food out for my old cat. He came out from under the sofa and rubbed against my legs. I crouched down, stroked his head, and thought, no matter how difficult the days ahead are, I have to live well for myself. Not even 30 minutes had passed since Bisa left when there was a knock at the door again. This time, it wasn't violent banging, but a very rhythmic knock. Each knock seemed to weigh a ton, as if trying to crush my heart. I was petting the cat, who had curled up in my lap. As soon as I heard the knocking, I knew it was my mother-in-law. I left the cat on the sofa, got up, and went toward the door. Before opening, I heard her voice from outside. "Ma child, open the door." "It's me." Bisa told me she came earlier and made a scene. "I've come so we can talk things over calmly." She spoke softly, but her usual authoritarian tone hadn't changed. I undid the deadbolt. As soon as the door cracked open, my mother-in-law pushed it and entered. She was still wearing the dark green wool coat I had gifted her 2 years ago, and a gray head wrap. In her hand, she held a cloth bag that seemed to contain something heavy. She walked into the house without taking off her shoes, leaving muddy tracks on the floor I had just mopped. I looked at the dirty footprints and felt a pang of annoyance, but I said nothing. After all, she was an elderly person. I decided to listen to what she had to say. My mother-in-law didn't look at me. She went straight to the center of the living room and set the cloth bag on the coffee table. With a dull thud, several apples rolled onto the floor. She dropped onto the sofa, purposefully occupying the spot where I usually sat, and patted the armrest. "Maka, come sit here. I want to tell you a couple of things seriously." I dragged over a chair and sat facing her. I placed my hands on my knees and waited for her to speak. My mother-in-law let out a long deep sigh as if carrying all the injustices of the world. "Bisa called me crying a while ago. She told me you canceled all the supplementary cards. Jelani couldn't pay the deposit at the hotel and had to beg people just to get a ride home. Tell me, how could you act in such an inconsiderate way?" I didn't answer. I waited for her to continue. Seeing my silence, she went on. "Galani made a mistake. Yes, cheating on you with that girl is his fault. But all men when they're young can do something foolish. Besides, you've lived together for 20 years. There's some affection left, isn't there? How could you cut him off like that? He's used those cards for years. If you cancel them all of a sudden, what kind of image is a businessman like him going to project? Hearing this, I couldn't help but frown. Mother-in-law, he didn't do something foolish. He committed adultery, and those cards are in my name. I cancel them when I want. It has nothing to do with the image he wants to project. If he wanted to keep up appearances, he shouldn't have bought handbags for his mistress with my card, nor booked a $75,000 wedding. And he certainly shouldn't have siphoned off our joint assets. What a way to talk. My mother-in-law slammed the table hard. The teacup sitting on it rattled. Adultery. That girl is young and affectionate. Jelani has a good time with her. What can we do? Besides, in 20 years, you haven't been able to give him a child. If Galani has a strong, healthy son with her, it will be a blessing for our family. Is it so hard for you to be a little understanding? Those words infuriated me completely. I got up, went to my study, and took out of the drawer the folder of receipts I had kept, the ledger of household expenses, the invoices from the construction supply business, and the proof of the transfers my ex-husband had made to his mistress. I threw the folder of receipts in front of my mother-in-law and pointed to one of them. That I'm not understanding with him. Well, look at this. Last winter, I had a fever of 102 degrees. I asked him to buy me some Tylenol and he told me he was busy, that he had met up with a friend. Do you know what the result was? That same day, he transferred $150 to that woman so she could buy new clothes. Is this something I should understand? My mother-in-law picked up the receipt, looked away, and put it back on the table. She kept insisting. Surely he had something important with his friend. And $150 isn't that much money. Men need to carry some money in their pockets to move in society. Not that much money? I grabbed another receipt. Well, look at this. Last year for Mother's Day, I bought him a sweater worth over $80, and he told me it was too expensive to return it. But that same day, Galani bought that woman a necklace worth almost $700 because that didn't seem expensive to him. And look at this, too. I pointed to the business ledgers. The starting capital for this store was $3,000 that my family contributed. For years, I've been the one keeping the books, receiving the merchandise, and tending to the business every day. There is nothing I haven't done. And Jelani has been siphoning money from the store to his personal account, penny by penny. Do you know how much he has diverted? More than $75,000. Half of that money is mine. With what right did he take it? Without saying a word to me. My mother-in-law's face began to pale. She tried to grab an apple from the cloth bag, but her hand was trembling so much she dropped it. The apple rolled across the floor. She cleared her throat a couple of times, trying to recover her authoritarian attitude. McKenna, Jelani earned all that money. He spends it how he wants. And you are my daughter-in-law. You have to obey me. Come on, reactivate those cards. If things go badly for Galani, I won't be at peace either. And if you give him a shock and he gets sick, you'll be held responsible. Responsible? I laughed. Mother-in-law, the $600 pension you collect each month, you don't give it all to Galani and Bisa. Bisa doesn't have a job and lives free of charge at your expense. Her son's tutoring, the household expenses. Don't you pay for it all? You save every last penny and wear the same clothes you've had for 5 years while Galani supported his mistress with my money. Because isn't that a lack of respect? Now you ask me to reactivate the card so he can keep supporting his mistress with my money or so Bisa can keep going shopping with my card. My mother-in-law was left speechless by my arguments. Her face went from red to white. A moment later, she suddenly threw herself onto the floor, slapped her knees with her hands, and started wailing loudly. Oh, how miserable I am. What a dog of a life. After raising my children alone for decades, the daughter-in-law I get, instead of respecting me, trips up my son. Oh, I can't take it anymore. Neighbors, come and see how this old woman is mistreated by her daughter-in-law. The more my mother-in-law cried, the calmer I felt. I went to the door, opened it a bit, and told her, "Mother-in-law, if you want the neighbors to come see the show, I'll open the door wide. Let everyone come in and decide who is right. Let's see if the crime is canceling my own cards, or if it's Jelani who has committed adultery and siphoned off our assets. Let's see if I am disrespectful, or if it is you who defends your son at all costs and mistreats your daughter-in-law. If you don't want to lose your dignity, let's speak clearly." My mother-in-law's crying stopped abruptly. She raised her head, looked through the crack in the door, and then glanced outside. Panic was reflected in her gaze. This subdivision was full of longtime neighbors. If something happened in a house, the whole neighborhood found out. If my mother-in-law made a scene, the ones who would look ridiculous wouldn't be me, but her and Galani. My mother-in-law got up slowly, dusted off her clothes, and shot me a murderous look. "You've grown bold, Mika. Now you've grown wings. You dare to talk back to me? You'll see. Galani won't forgive you for this." With that, she grabbed the cloth bag from the small table and went straight out the door. Passing by me, she shoved me hard on purpose. I didn't move. I simply looked at her. Upon reaching the door, she ran out without changing her shoes and slammed it even harder than her daughter had. I locked the door, looked at the apples rolling on the floor and the folder of receipts on the table, and let out a deep sigh. The truth is, confronting my mother-in-law made my heart tremble a little, too. After all, she was an elderly person, but thinking about my 20 years of humiliation, I couldn't take it anymore. I picked up the apples from the floor and put them in a fruit bowl in the kitchen. I organized the folder of receipts and put it back in the drawer. The old cat approached and rubbed against my legs. I sat down, stroked his head, and whispered to him, "Don't be afraid. I'm here now." I knew that after my mother-in-law, my ex-husband, would come. The problems looming were many, but I was prepared. No matter what tricks they used, I wouldn't let myself be humiliated like before again. I would recover what was mine and make them pay for what they had done. In the afternoon, I called Zuri and told her about my mother-in-law's visit. Zuri let out a couple of curse words over the phone and then said, "Maka, don't worry. If they bother you again, call me. I'll come running. Oh, and the lawyer I told you about, I've already contacted him. Does tomorrow work for you? We'll go together. We'll show him those receipts and see if there's any way to recover the assets he stole from you." Zuri's words comforted me. With her help and that of a lawyer, I wouldn't have to fight alone anymore. I told her tomorrow worked well, that we would go see the lawyer in the morning. After hanging up, I went out onto the balcony and looked at the sun. I felt much lighter. No matter how thorny the path ahead was, I would keep going. I was going to live for myself for once. I picked up all the apples my mother-in-law had dropped. Some were bruised, but others could be eaten after washing. I put them on a plate in the kitchen to dry. While I wiped a stain off the coffee table, the old cat curled up at my feet, occasionally rubbing his head against my pants. He seemed to know something had happened in the house and was quieter than usual. Just at that moment, my cell phone rang. The screen of the phone lying on the living room table lit up. It was my ex-husband's number. My fingers paused for an instant. I knew what had to come had arrived. Neither his mother nor his sister had achieved anything, so it was obvious now it was his turn to intervene. I put down the cloth, walked over, and picked up the phone, but I didn't answer immediately. First, I activated the recorder. Since the little number his sister had pulled, I had decided I should record everything they said as proof so they couldn't deny anything later. Only after being prepared did I press the accept button and put the phone to my ear. "McKenna, have you lost your damn mind?" My ex-husband's voice exploded on the other end of the line. It sounded harsh and as if he had just been arguing with someone, and car horns could be heard in the background. He seemed to be on the street. "Was it you? Did you cancel the 15 supplementary cards?" I leaned back against the sofa, gently stroking my old cat's back, and replied with a voice devoid of emotion. "Yes, I can-led them." "So what?" "So what, damn it," he shouted so loud it hurt my ear. Today at the hotel in front of a bunch of people, I swiped 7 or 8 cards and none of them worked. The way that hotel manager looked at me, it seemed like he was looking at a beggar and the girl next to me wouldn't stop rushing me. Do you know the embarrassment I went through? You did it on purpose, didn't you? You can't stand seeing me happy. I laughed. The old cat was startled by the shouting coming from the phone. I quickly petted him to calm him down. Yes, I did it on purpose. And did you think about my happiness when you went to book a $75,000 engagement party with your mistress? When you were buying her $3,500 handbags and $500 necklaces with my credit card? Didn't you think that I was still wearing an old coat from 3 years ago when you siphoned more than $75,000 from the supply business to your personal account? Didn't you think that half of that money was mine? Stop talking nonsense. My ex-husband interrupted me. His voice was loaded with panic and rage. I've used those cards for years. They're like they were mine. If you wanted to cancel them, at least you could have told me. Do I even exist to you? Do you have any affection left? Affection? I repeated that word. My heart didn't feel even the slightest flutter. It just seemed ridiculous to me. When I caught you hugging your mistress in the store, did you think about affection? When I had a 102 degrees fever and asked you to buy me medicine and you told me you were busy drinking with a friend while you took that woman to a restaurant, did you think about affection? It's too late to talk about affection now. He was left speechless by my answer. His voice became harsher, threatening. Maka, listen to me well. Reactivate those cards right now. If not, you're going to regret it. I know you still have those receipts. Do you think those scraps of paper will serve as proof? We're already divorced and the division of assets is done. Don't you even think about getting another cent out of me. I held the phone and listened to his screaming. The little red dot of the recorder blinked, registering every one of his pleasantries. I said calmly, whether the division of assets is done or not isn't decided by you. I've hired a lawyer, and tomorrow I'm meeting with him. We'll see then. Let's see if the $75,000 you diverted and the money you spent on your mistress with my card are considered marital assets or not. And don't even dream about me reactivating the cards. They're mine, so I give them to whoever I want. Who do you think you are? A lawyer? You dare to hire a lawyer? My ex-husband's voice denoted panic, but he kept trying to act tough. Mikka, don't push it. My mother told me, if you don't reactivate the cards, we'll come to your house every day to make a scene. We'll make sure the whole subdivision finds out what kind of harpy you are. A woman who, even after divorcing, tries to fleece her ex-husband. Let's see if you can show your face on the street after that. Then come. My voice turned cold. The last time your sister came to make a scene, I didn't call the police out of respect for you. If you all come back, I'll call 911 directly. And then we'll see. Let's see if the crime is canceling my own cards or if it's your family coming in a mob to cause a disturbance. Then not only the neighbors, but also the police will find out what your family is really like. Let's see who ends up more embarrassed. Silence fell on the other end of the line for a few seconds. Then I heard a dry thud, as if he had smashed the phone against something. It was followed by his curses loaded with rage. Mikaina, you witch. I was blind. How could I end up with someone like you? You'll see. This isn't going to end like this. I won't let you live in peace. Despite his threats, I didn't feel even the slightest fear. On the contrary, I felt relieved. The angrier he got, the more obvious it was that he was running out of arguments. I checked that the recording time exceeded 3 minutes. I already had the evidence I needed. I hung up the phone with determination. I saved the audio file, renamed it Threat Call from Galani, and uploaded it to the cloud. Although I had hung up, it seemed his growl still echoed in the phone. I left the mobile on the small table, got up, and went to the kitchen for a glass of warm water. A few sips were enough to calm the uneasiness I felt. The old cat jumped onto the sofa and curled up in the spot I had just left, wagging his tail gently. I went to the balcony and drew the curtains. The sky had already darkened. In the courtyard, some neighbors were walking and chatting animatedly. Leaning on the railing, I thought about my ex-husband's threats. And suddenly, it seemed comical to me. Before, I had always been scared of him getting angry. I was terrified to argue with him. So, I gave in on everything. And what was the result? Betrayal and schemes. Now that I was no longer afraid, he couldn't do anything to me. Just at that moment, I received a WhatsApp from Zuri. Tomorrow at 10 at the lawyer's office. Does that work for you? I replied, yes, perfect. I told her my ex-husband had just called to threaten me and sent her a copy of the audio file. Zuri replied instantly, well done. You have to record everything. With this recording, he won't dare threaten you lightly, and the lawyer will have a basis to act. Don't worry. Tomorrow, when we meet with the lawyer, surely we'll find a way to recover the money he stole from you. Zuri's message comforted me. With her by my side and a lawyer to help me, I wouldn't have to fight alone anymore. I replied, I'm not afraid. I have you. I closed WhatsApp and went back to the living room. I organized the folder of receipts on the table and put it in the briefcase I would carry tomorrow. Then I started preparing dinner. In the fridge, there were some vegetables and eggs I had bought the day before. I prepared a couple of simple dishes and a little soup, and dinner was ready. While I ate, the old cat sat quietly beside me at the table. I gave him a piece of egg and he ate it with gusto. Looking at him, I thought, even if in the future we only have each other, we have to live very well. I won't let those horrible people and their problems affect me anymore. I knew my ex-husband wouldn't give up easily and would create more problems for me. He might come looking for me again or bring his mother and sister to make a scene, but I was prepared. No matter what tricks they used, I would face them and fight back. And most importantly, I was going to live for myself for once, 100 times better than before. After backing up the audio file of Jelani's call, I checked once more the folder of receipts I had put in the briefcase. The documents I was going to present to the lawyer tomorrow had to be perfectly organized. There couldn't be any mistakes. Inside the briefcase was also the lawyer's business card Zuri had given me. I looked at the clock. It had just struck 7 p.m. Outside. It was already dark and the comforting aroma of hot soup wafted from the kitchen. The old cat sitting next to the table stared at my chopsticks waiting for me to give him another piece of egg. Just as I was about to sit down to eat, my phone emitted a ping. It was a friend request notification on a social network. I picked up the phone and saw there was a new message in the request list. The username was Callous. The profile picture was a selfie of a woman with a lot of makeup and a shiny necklace. I didn't have to think twice. It was undoubtedly the mistress. The request message was arrogant and provocative. I'm Jelani's fiancé. I have a couple of things to tell you, so accept me. Reading those words, I couldn't help but smile with disdain. The old cat rubbed against my hand. I patted his head and pressed the accept button. Let's see what wonders she had to tell me. As soon as I accepted her as a friend, her messages started raining down like bombs. First, 3 or 4 photos. The first was a general view of the hotel banquet hall, a spectacular chandelier shone on the ceiling. And although the banner in the background didn't have names yet, it read happily ever after. The second photo was a selfie of her in a white wedding dress. The train of the dress was extremely long and on her hand she sported a diamond ring while making a victory sign to the camera. The third photo was with Jelani. He was hugging her by the waist and both were in front of the wedding menu. Just reading the names of the dishes, you could tell it was extremely expensive. Next came a text message. Every line oozed presumption. Here is where Jelani and I are going to celebrate our engagement. He said he's going to spend $75,000. So, I have a top-notch wedding. Look, my wedding dress is designer and costs over $20,000 and this ring $18,000. Jelani says it looks beautiful on me. Surely in 20 years with Galani, you've never seen such a luxurious place. I took a spoonful of soup and slowly typed my answer. My tone was extremely calm. What a pretty place. The dress and ring also look very expensive. But I have a doubt. Are you paying for it or is Jelani? If he's paying, if I were you, I'd be careful. Yesterday, he called me desperate because he couldn't even pay the deposit for the reservation. He swiped 7 or 8 cards and none worked. Do you really believe he has $75,000? Not even 10 seconds had passed since I sent the message when she replied. Every letter denoted urgency. Don't talk nonsense. Jelani has a lot of money. His business is going wonderfully. It's impossible he doesn't have money. You're just jealous and can't stand seeing us happy. That I'm jealous of you. It seemed increasingly comical to me. I've lived with Galani for 20 years. I know what kind of person he is better than you. His business barely stays afloat. Last year, he even diverted over $75,000 to his personal account. Who do you think he diverted that money for? And the money with which he bought you the dress and the ring probably was charged to my supplementary credit card. Oh, by the way, I can lend that card. He won't be able to use it anymore, even if he wants to. This time, her answer took a while to arrive. A minute passed before a single sentence appeared. Liar. Jelani told me those cards were his, that you had cancelled them out of spite. And he also told me that in the divorce, the division of assets was already closed. So, don't even think about getting another cent out of him. Division of assets closed. I put down the phone and sent her a screenshot of the bank statement I had saved previously. Look at this. On May 15th of last year, he transferred $3,500 to your account. Concept for your expenses. On June 28th, another $2,000 concept for the bag. All this money was our marital assets. He sent it to you without consulting me. Do you call that a closed division? And if he really had so much money, why would he give you cards that don't even work? This time she took 2 minutes to answer. Her tone wasn't as strong as before, and it even seemed she was on the defensive. Jelani gave me that voluntarily. We truly love each other, and you are just a stranger. Don't meddle in our business. You're already divorced. Why are you obsessed with the past? Do you want to get back with him? I'm warning you. Don't even dream of getting back with him. I almost burst out laughing. You have an ego through the roof. Hey, I just wanted to remind you that you shouldn't brag so much about celebrating a wedding and buying luxury items with other people's money. If you're not careful, you could end up without money, without a wedding, and in the end with nothing. And if you truly love him, you shouldn't have pressured him to ask me to reactivate the cards, nor to siphon off the assets. If you really are going to live together, is it necessary to be so calculating? It seems my words hit the nail on the head. She started insulting me with all kinds of rude and vulgar pleasantries, calling me a bitter old woman and a harpy. I didn't argue with her. I simply took screenshots of the entire conversation, saved them in a folder of evidence, and sent a copy to Zuri. Just after taking the screenshots, a notification appeared. This user has removed you from their friends list. Seeing the notification, I left the phone on the table, picked up the chopsticks, and took a spoonful of soup. The soup was still hot, and its flavor comforted me inside. Finally, I gave a piece of egg to the old cat, who ate it with pleasure. Shortly after, I received a WhatsApp from Zuri. She sent me an emoticon of a face with smoke coming out of its ears and a message. But this chick, what's her deal? She dares to provoke you. She doesn't know who she messed with. She thinks this Galani guy is actually rich. You'll see. Soon she'll be crying in the corners. I replied, surely it's not worth wasting time on her. But I've kept screenshots of the whole conversation. Tomorrow I'll show them to the lawyer. Maybe they serve as proof. Of course, keep them safe, added Zuri. Tomorrow, I'll wait for you at the lawyer's office a little early. We'll talk to him and settle the matter of the assets that jerk Jelani stole from you. We have to recover your money. After talking to Zuri, I washed the dishes and checked the briefcase one more time. Receipts, screenshots of transfers, Jelani's audio file, screenshots of the conversation with the mistress. Nothing was missing. Then I sat on the sofa, turned on the TV, and put on an old-school R&B concert special for a while. Before I used to watch it often with my mother-in-law, but since the problems with Jelani started, I stopped watching. Now watching it alone, I found it quite entertaining. Watching the scenes on TV, my heart felt strangely at peace. Before, I always lived in fear of offending my husband or bothering my mother-in-law. So I endured and let everything slide. And what was the result? Suffering. And to top it off, betrayal. Now it was different. Whether it was Jelani's threats or his mistress's provocations, I could face them firmly and even fight back. I knew the road ahead would still be full of thorns. For example, Jelani might try to pressure me in other ways, or my mother-in-law and sister-in-law might come back to make a scene. But I was no longer afraid. I had evidence in my hands and by my side, my friend and a lawyer. And above all, I finally had the courage to fight for myself. As the saying goes, it's better to lose money than honor. I wasn't just going to recover my honor, but also everything that belonged to me and live the years I had left well. And as for those horrible people and their problems, let them torment each other. In the end, the only ones who would lose out would be themselves. I woke up at 6 a.m. After tossing and turning in bed, unable to sleep, I got up and checked the briefcase again. Last night, after the conversation with the mistress, I had printed the screenshots and organized them along with the receipts and the existing audio file. I was worried about overlooking something important. My old cat wandered around the living room, occasionally rubbing his head against my hand as if he wanted to encourage me. 7 miles, I finished getting ready and left the house. I had arranged to meet Zuri on the street corner. She was already there wearing her usual red jacket, holding 2 warm breakfast sandwiches. As soon as she saw me, she gave me one. Here, eat. I just bought it at the cafe downstairs. Later, when you meet with the lawyer, you'll have a lot to talk about. And if you're hungry, you won't have strength. I took a bite of the sandwich. The intense flavor of the country hemp comforted me to my soul. No one like you. With the mess of the papers, I had forgotten to eat breakfast. Always so scattered. To face people like that, first you have to take care of yourself, said Zuri as we walked. The lawyer I found for you is totally trustworthy. He specializes in post-divorce asset disputes. Last year, he handled the case of the neighbor next door and got them to return all the assets they had stolen from her. While chatting, we arrived at the lawyer's office. It wasn't very big, but it was spotless. On the walls hung several plaques of appreciation with phrases like defender of justice and wholehearted service. The lawyer was already waiting for us in his office. He seemed to be in his early 40s. He wore glasses and had a very serene appearance. Upon seeing us enter, he got up quickly and invited us to sit. Come in, please sit down. Have a glass of water and tell me everything calmly. I handed him the briefcase. I was a little nervous and clenched my fists. Counselor, please take a look at this. It's all the documentation I've collected, family expense receipts, the ledgers from the construction supply business, and also proof of the transfers he made to his mistress. Everything is there. The lawyer took the briefcase, took out the documents, and examined them one by one with attention. Occasionally, he underlined some lines with a pen. In the office, only the sound of turning pages could be heard. Zuri and I waited in silence for him to speak. After about 30 minutes, the lawyer put down the documents, adjusted his glasses, and looking at me said, "You have prepared the documentation very thoroughly. Especially, the business ledgers are crucial proof as they record every income and expense. You say he diverted $75,000. According to these books, between May and October of last year, he made a total of 5 transfers to his personal account, each of $15,000, totaling $75,000. Furthermore, these transfers were made before you divorced, so they are considered marital assets. Having made them unilaterally without his wife's consent is clearly an illegal act. I felt a knot in my stomach. So, will I be able to recover that money? I asked hurriedly. I've heard there are people who, despite proving the asset diversion, end up recovering nothing. You will be able to recover it. Don't worry, affirmed the lawyer roundly. The ledgers are impeccable, and we have proof of the transfers to his personal account. The chain of evidence is perfect. In addition to those $75,000, I see that since the beginning of last year, he made several smaller transfers, amounts between $700 and $1,500 each time, totaling over $7,000. This money must also be included in the calculation. And also, the items he bought for his mistress using your supplementary card. You have the card statements, right? If we can prove those expenses were for her, they are also considered part of your marital assets, and you can demand the return of a portion. Hearing this, the stone crushing my heart finally seemed to vanish. The tension I felt dissipated greatly. Zuri, sitting next to me, also let out a sigh of relief and patted my hand. See, I told you this lawyer was trustworthy. Now you can rest easy, the lawyer continued. The next step is to obtain all the information from his personal account. That is the account number, the bank where he opened it, and also the details of the bank account to which he transferred the money to his mistress. To get this, I can request a court order and have the bank provide us with the information directly. Aside from this, think if you have more marital assets, for example, the house, the car, or if he has other deposits or investment products. We have to be clear on everything and let nothing slide. After thinking for a moment, I said, we bought the house together after getting married, and it's in both our names that we bought the car 2 years ago, and it's in his name. As for other deposits, I once asked him, and he told me he had no savings, that he invested everything in the business. Now I see surely he hid it from me. Both the house and the car are marital assets. So in the divorce, they must be divided 50-50ths. Even if he wants to keep everything, it won't be easy for him, said the lawyer. As for other deposits, I can trace the capital flow through his bank movements. If we have the statements, it's possible to follow the trail. Don't worry if he tries any tricks. The law is on our side. He won't be able to get away with it. I took out my phone and showed the lawyer the screenshot of Galani's personal account I had saved. This is his personal account. I saw it by chance on his phone and wrote it down. The mistress's account number I found in the messages they exchanged. Will it be of any use? The lawyer took the phone, glanced at it, and nodded. With this information, the process will be much simpler. Today, I will file the request with the court to obtain the investigation order as soon as possible. As soon as we have the results, we can file the lawsuit and demand the return of the assets he has diverted. When we finished the consultation with the lawyer, it was almost noon. We thanked him and left the office. On the street, the sun shone warmly and my heart felt much lighter. Before facing my ex-husband's schemes, I had always felt alone and helpless. Now I realized that if I didn't give up, if I counted on the help of my friends and the protection of the law, there was nothing I couldn't overcome. Zuri took me to a small restaurant nearby and ordered 2 of my favorite dishes. While we ate, she told me, Maka, when all this is sorted out, don't stay locked up at home. I found you a job. A friend of mine owns an organic market in the neighborhood, and she's looking for a manager. The pay is good, and since you already managed your husband's supply business, I'm sure you'll do great. My heart skipped a beat. I had already thought that after the divorce, I should look for a job to earn a living by myself and not depend on anyone. That Zuri proposed it to me now fit perfectly with my plans. That would be great, but I'm scared I won't know how to do it. Well, what do you mean you won't, said Zuri, smiling. You're meticulous and you're good with numbers. Managing an organic market won't be any problem. My friend says she'll teach you herself for a few days how to choose the merchandise, how to preserve it. You'll learn right away. Listening to Zuri, my worries dissipated greatly. She continued, my friend says if it sounds good to you, tomorrow you can stop by the store to talk. If you like it, you can start working next Monday. You don't have to decide now, but at least go take a look. Sounds perfect to me. A stone was lifted from my heart. Before, I had always worried about being left without a job and without income after the divorce. With this opportunity, I didn't have to be afraid. Zuri took another folder out of her bag and handed it to me. And the papers you prepared with the lawyer, I made copies. There are several, one for the lawyer, another for you, and the rest is backup in case they're needed later. I also spoke with the lawyer. The request for the investigation order is already underway and will take about 3 or 4 days to come out. As soon as it is, he'll call you. I took the folder. Inside the documents were perfectly organized and each copy was labeled receipts, transfers, audio backup. Seeing all this, I felt deep emotion. Zuri, thank you so much. Without you, I don't know what I would have done. What nonsense are you saying? Said Zuri, smiling. We've been friends for 20 years. How could I not help you at a time like this? You helped me, too, when I had a hard time. Now it's my turn. And that wretched ex-husband of yours and his family need to get what they deserve. We can't let them get away with it. Then Zuri took my phone and opened the audio file. Oh, and the audio you recorded of Jelani and Biza threatening you. I've uploaded it to the cloud. I put a password on it so no one else can see it. Don't worry. If they bother you again, keep recording. All that is evidence the lawyer can use. I nodded. I felt much calmer with a friend like Zuri helping me, a trustworthy lawyer, and a job in sight. I was no longer the submissive housewife of before. In the afternoon, Zuri accompanied me to the organic market. The place wasn't big, but it was spotless. The vegetables and fruits were organized with the arrival date clearly visible. The owner, a woman in her 40s, was very kind. As soon as she saw me, she smiled. You're Zuri's friend, right? She told me, you're very meticulous, that you're good with accounts and management. I need a trustworthy manager. So, if it sounds good to you, we can work together. I talked with the owner. She explained the daily operation of the store. For example, in the morning, you have to go select fresh vegetables and fruits. At noon, restock the products, and in the afternoon, take inventory and keep the books. They were tasks similar to what I did in the supply business, so I felt I could do it. Upon finishing talking, I told her, "Boss, I accept the job. Next Monday, I start." The owner was very happy and took my hand. That's great. With your help, you'll take a huge weight off my shoulders. Leaving the store, Zuri grabbed my hand and smiled. See, I told you you could do it. Now everything is on track. You have a job. The evidence is being collected. From now on, things can only get better. Looking at the people coming and going on the street with the sun shining warmly, my heart filled with hope. Before I thought divorce was the end of the world. Now I realized that if I didn't give up and counted on the support of my friends, there was no obstacle I couldn't overcome. Returning home, I left the job offer and the document folder on the coffee table. The old cat jumped onto the table and sat next to the folder as if protecting my evidence. I stroked his head and thought, next Monday, I start working. I have to strive and live well. I'm going to live for myself for once. I won't let those horrible people and their problems affect me anymore. At night, I sent a message to the lawyer to inform him that Zuri had helped me organize the documents and to confirm again the matter of the investigation order. The lawyer replied, "Don't worry. As soon as the order comes out, I will contact you. Then we will go together to the bank to check the account information and ensure you recover your assets." The lawyer's message gave me even more firmness. Now I had a job, friends, and the protection of the law. I no longer had to fear Galani and his family. I knew the road ahead could still be difficult, but I was prepared. Whatever happened, I would face it with courage and move forward. On Sunday morning, I was returning from the organic market where I had been learning the trade. The owner, who was a sweetheart, had spent the whole morning teaching me how to choose the freshest vegetables. For example, she explained that I had to look at the moisture of the leaves and the firmness of the stems. She also taught me to preserve fruit by covering it with a damp cloth and changing the water twice a day. It stayed fresh 2 or 3 days longer. With a bag full of vegetables and apples the owner had given me. My heart was calm. Thinking that on Monday I officially started working made me feel that finally there was hope in my future. Just when I reached the entrance of my house, the phone rang. It was Jelani's number. I frowned. I hesitated a moment and answered. After all, the issue of the assets wasn't resolved yet. So, if he was looking for me, surely it was about that. McKenna, it's me. The voice on the other end of the line was completely different from usual. There was no arrogance or threats, but a soft tone almost pleading. Do you have a moment? I wanted to talk to you about the assets issue and the misunderstandings we've had. Let's see if we can talk it over properly without always being defensive. My heart skipped a beat. Instinctively, I knew he was up to no good. He, who before insulted and threatened me, now showed himself so kind. There had to be some trap. I didn't accept immediately. If you have something to say it over the phone. I don't have time to meet. Over the phone. We can't talk properly. Let's meet in person, he said hurriedly. I know I messed up. I shouldn't have argued with you, nor let my mother and sister go make a scene. I found a quiet coffee shop near your house. Just half an hour. We talk and I go. I won't bother you anymore. I thought about it for a moment. If we talked on the phone, surely he would twist things. Meeting wasn't a bad idea. I could set things straight and see what he was plotting. But I wasn't foolish enough to go alone. Okay, we can meet, but I won't go alone. I'll go with someone else. If you agree, see you at 2 p.m. at the coffee shop on the corner. If not, forget it. He hesitated for a few seconds. Fearing I wouldn't accept, he said quickly. Agreed. Come with whoever you want. The important thing is that we can talk. After hanging up, I immediately called my lawyer and told him Galani wanted to meet. The lawyer, after listening to me, said instantly, surely he's trying to convince you to give up the assets, for example, to voluntarily give up the $75,000 or to sign over the house. Don't go alone. I will accompany you. Let's also bring the evidence we've gathered. If he tries any trick, we'll unmask him on the spot. At 2:10, my lawyer and I met at the door of the coffee shop. He was carrying a briefcase with all the evidence. He patted my shoulder and told me, don't get nervous. With me here, he won't dare do anything. Then whatever he says, let him talk. Don't refute anything yet. When he brings up the subject of assets, I will present the evidence. Let's go step by step. Entering the coffee shop, we saw Galani sitting at a table by the window. He was wearing a black jacket, and his hair was slicked back. In front of him was a latte, the kind I used to drink. He, who before never bought it for me because it was expensive, now acted generous. We sat across from him. Upon seeing the lawyer, Jelani's face tensed for a moment, but he immediately forced a smile. This is my lawyer. To facilitate the record of the conversation regarding the assets, I have decided that he be present, I said, going straight to the point. Jelani's smile froze on his face. To hide his nervousness, he took a sip of coffee. Seems fine to me. With a lawyer present, things will be clearer. McKenna. After all, we were married for 20 years. Even if we've divorced, we don't have to be enemies about my mother and sister. That was their fault. I've already scolded them. They won't bother you again. I said nothing. I waited for him to bring up the subject. Indeed, after a pause, he continued on the topic of assets. I know you're still angry. Surely you think I stole $75,000 from you. But in reality, it wasn't an intentional diversion. At that moment, the business needed urgent liquidity, and I transferred it temporarily to my personal account. I intended to return it as soon as things improved, but I forgot. Now, the business isn't going well. The girl won't stop arguing with me. I'm having a hard time, too. Couldn't we pretend that never happened? Like, you lend it to me, and I'll pay you back when I have money. Lent? I laughed. Those $75,000 were marital assets. You diverted them without consulting me, and now you say I lent them to you. And when you bought handbags and necklaces for your mistress with that money, did you think you were borrowing it from me? Jelani's face blushed slightly. He said hurriedly, all that is misunderstandings. The things I bought her were with my personal money, not with those $75,000. Maya, let's leave the past behind. I know now you don't have it easy either. You have no job or income. Look, let's do one thing. You keep the house. I'll give you a compensation of $120,000 more. With that money, you can find a good job and live well. Can't we part in peace? Hearing this, I burst out laughing. The house we had bought together after getting married was worth at least $200,000, and he intended to buy me out with $120,000. And on top of that, he said I had no job or income. He was incredibly calculating. Before I could open my mouth, my lawyer spoke. He took out of his briefcase the business ledgers and put them in front of Jelani. Mr. Jelani, you say you used the $75,000 as a temporary operating fund. However, according to the books, between May and October of last year, you made a total of 5 transfers to your personal account, each of $15,000. And after each transfer, there is an expense of a significant amount. For example, on May 16th, you transferred $15,000. And on May 18th, you transferred $3,500 to Miss Collis. On June 10th, you transferred $15,000. And on June 12th, you bought a handbag worth over $7,000. All the records are here. How do you explain it? Jelani picked up the ledgers. His fingers were trembling, and his face was getting paler and paler. His voice also started to shake. Those are normal business expenses. I didn't spend it on her. Normal expenses. The lawyer took out other bank statements. This is the statement of your personal account provided by the bank. Between May and December of last year, you made Miss Collis a total of 8 transfers totaling over $40,000. The source of this money is the $75,000 you transferred from the joint account and the items you bought her with the supplementary card, which total over $1,200. All receipts are registered at the bank. Do you still maintain they are normal expenses? Jelani, looking at the evidence on the table, started to shake. His kind attitude had completely disappeared and his voice had become louder. Maka, do you really have to go this far? What do you gain by fighting me for a miserable $75,000? After all, we were married. Can't you yield a little? Yield? I looked at him. My heart didn't feel even the slightest flutter. If I yield, who yields to me? I lived with you for 20 years, saving every last penny, while you cheated on me. You diverted our assets and treated me like a fool. And now you ask me to yield. Do you really believe that's possible? The lawyer continued, Mr. Jelani, according to the law, during the marriage, if one of the spouses unilaterally disposes of or sells marital assets at the time of divorce, they may receive a smaller share or even receive nothing. You have diverted $75,000 of marital assets and used them for the benefit of a third party. It is a clearly illegal act. Currently, my client demands the full return of the $75,000 and the division of the house and the car. If you do not agree, we will file a lawsuit. Then, not only will you have to return the money, but also cover the court costs and your credit history will be affected. Jelani's face went completely white. He slumped in the chair looking at the evidence on the table and was left speechless for a good while. A moment later, he suddenly stood up, pointed at me, and shouted, Maka, you harpy. I knew you didn't come with good intentions. You just came to take my money. You'll see. This isn't going to end like this. With that, he grabbed his jacket and left, slamming the door. He didn't even pay for the coffee. Watching his pathetic figure walk away, I let out a sigh of relief. The tension I felt had completely dissipated. The lawyer put the evidence back in his briefcase and said, "See, he was just trying to convince you to give up the assets. Good thing we had the proof. He didn't get away with it. The next step is to wait for the investigation order, obtain his account information, and present it to the court so they return the money as soon as possible." Leaving the coffee shop, the sun shone warmly. My heart was strangely at peace. Before, I had always been scared that Galani would try some trick. Now with a lawyer and the evidence in hand, no matter what means he used, I could face him. I sent a message to Zuri and told her what had just happened. Zuri replied instantly. "Well done. He needs to get what he deserves. Let him know you're not stupid. On Monday, when you start working, I'll stop by the store to cheer you on." Reading Zuri's message, I smiled. The May of now was no longer the weak and easily fooled housewife of before. I had the support of my friends, the protection of the law, and a new job about to start. I firmly believed that from now on, things could only get better. I wouldn't let those horrible people and their problems affect me anymore. I was going to live for myself for once in a truly brilliant and free way. Returning from the coffee shop, I held the folder with the impeccably organized evidence. As soon as I entered the house, the old cat ran to greet me, rubbing against my legs and meowing. I left the vegetables the store owner had given me in the kitchen and put a little more food out for the cat. Watching him eat with his head down made the discomfort Jelani's little number had left me dissipate little by little. Just as I finished tidying up, I received a call from Zuri. As soon as I answered, she asked, "How did the meeting with your ex-husband go? He didn't try any nonsense, did he?" I smiled and told her everything that had happened that afternoon, how Jelani had tried to act nice so I would give up the assets, and how he had been left speechless and fled pathetically when the lawyer presented the evidence. Zuri, listening to it, laughed out loud. "He deserves it. Let's see if he drops those smart aleck airs. Oh, I have to tell you something. The hotel manager I told you about, the regular customer at my clothing store, came to buy today, and I brought up the subject of your ex-husband's engagement party. Turns out he is in charge of that event, so he knows all the details of the reservation. Do you want me to ask him for anything specific?" My heart skipped a beat. I had already thought that if I managed to know the time, place, and guest list, I could unmask Galani right at the engagement party in front of his friends and relatives. That I could now obtain the information from the hotel manager was a golden opportunity, but I hesitated a bit. He is the manager. Is it okay for him to reveal client information? After all, it's his job. I don't want him to have problems because of me. Don't worry, I get along very well with him. He's not a rigid person, said Zuri, smiling. Besides, hearing the story of your ex-husband, the adultery, and the asset diversion. He sympathized a lot with you. He said, men like that need to be taught a lesson. I've already arranged to meet him tomorrow at 3 p.m. at a tea shop near the hotel. He'll tell you all the details. You just have to go. The next day, I arrived at the tea shop 10 minutes early. I had just found a table by the window when I saw a middle-aged man enter wearing the hotel uniform of average build with glasses. He had a very serene appearance. Undoubtedly, it was the manager. I got up quickly and greeted him. Hello, director. I'm Zur's friend. The manager smiled, sat down, ordered a tea, and went straight to the point. Hello. Zuri has already updated me. Don't worry. Within what the hotel rules allow, I will help you however I can. Your ex-husband's engagement party was booked on the 18th of last month. It will be held in the largest banquet hall of our hotel. It has a capacity for 50 tables and each table costs $2,000 including venue rental service, the MC, and lighting. The total exceeds $75,000. I took out a notebook and wrote it all down. My conviction was getting stronger. So, how much deposit has he paid and when is the party? He has only paid $7,000 deposit. The manager took a sip of tea and continued. According to hotel rules, for such a large event, the deposit must be at least 20% of the total cost, that is $15,000. But your ex-husband begged us saying he had liquidity problems. And in the end, we accepted the $7,000 with the promise that he would pay the rest in a week, but he still hasn't done it. The party is on the 18th of this month, 10 days from now. Yesterday, we called him to remind him, and he asked for 3 more days. If he hasn't paid by then, the $7,000 deposit will not be returned to him, and the party will be cancelled. Hearing this, I felt great satisfaction. Jelani, unable to even scrape together the deposit, had promised his mistress a $75,000 party, truly all talk and no action. I continued asking, so, is the guest list closed? Who is going? He still hasn't given us the complete list, but we know some of the important guests, said the manager after thinking for a moment. He said he would invite more than 300 people, including big clients from the supply business, friends, and family. Oh, and he expressly asked us to reserve the best tables right next to the main one for the mistress's parents. I suppose he wanted to look good. I wrote everything in my notebook and asked again. And the MC, does the hotel provide one or has he hired one? We provide him. He is our best MC. He has tons of experience, said the manager. I've already put him on alert. I told him if anything happens to cooperate as much as possible. Of course, it can't be too obvious. After all, I'm from the hotel, too. My heart filled with gratitude. Thank you very much, Director. If it weren't for your help, I wouldn't have been able to know all these details. You're welcome. I don't like men like that either. The manager smiled. Don't worry. Within what doesn't break the rules, I'll help you however I can. Oh, I have a copy of the reservation contract. It contains the signature, date, place, and detailed costs. I brought you a copy. Take it. You might need it. I took the copy of the contract. The content was exactly what the manager had told me and included Jelani's scrolled signature. My conviction was even stronger. After chatting a little more and thanking him for his help, I left the tea shop. As soon as I left, I called Zuri and told her all the details. Zuri, listening to it, said excitedly, "That's great. Now we know everything. And since he hasn't paid the full deposit, maybe the party won't even happen. And if it does happen, we can unmask him right there in front of his clients and friends." That's right. And I have a copy of the contract with the signature and costs. When I show it, everyone will realize he is a fraud, I said, smiling. After hanging up, I called my lawyer to explain the situation and ask if it was okay to present the evidence right at the engagement party to unmask Jelani. The lawyer, after listening to me, said, "No problem, but you must do it with moderation. You can't disturb the hotel's order, or you could have problems. The best way is when the MC asks the couple if they truly love each other, you stand up and present the evidence. That way, without causing a ruckus, you will achieve the maximum effect." I noted the lawyer's advice. In my head, I already had a plan. The day of the party, at the most important moment, I would appear with the evidence and reveal everything. Jelani's adultery, the asset diversion, the unpaid deposit. I would make him and his mistress look ridiculous in front of everyone and let everyone see his true face. Returning home, I kept the notebook and the contract copy in the briefcase along with the other evidence. The old cat jumped on the table and rubbed against my hand as if he wanted to encourage me. I stroked his head. My heart was full of confidence. If before Jelani and his family had tormented me, now it was their turn to pay for it. During the following days, while I familiarized myself with the work at the organic market, I waited for the results of the lawyer's investigation order. The store owner and employees were all very kind. Despite knowing my situation, they didn't judge me. On the contrary, they always helped me so I had more time to prepare my plan. Every night upon returning home, I checked the evidence one by one to make sure nothing was missing. The transfer statements, the credit card receipts, the reservation contract, the recording of Jelani's threats, the recording of the scandal involving his mother and sister, the screenshots of the conversation with the mistress. Nothing was missing. I knew those were my weapons, and with them, I could completely rip the mask off Jelani and his mistress. 3 days before the party, I received a call from the lawyer. The investigation order had already come out, and they had gone to the bank to check Jelani's account information. Of the $75,000 he had diverted, $40,000 had been transferred to the mistress, and the other $35,000 he had used to pay gambling debts. Not only had he cheated on me, but he was also a compulsive gambler. It was an unexpected discovery. If I revealed this at the party, the humiliation would be even greater. After hanging up, I looked at the evidence on the table. My heart was firm. I knew that in 3 days, the day of Jelani and his mistress's supposed happiness would also be the day of their complete humiliation. I waited anxiously, the day when they would pay a fair price for their actions. I was organizing merchandise in the store. My hands were still damp from the apples I had just cleaned. The ones that had arrived that morning were very fresh and red. Following the owner's instructions, I was separating those with any small bruise to sell the cheaper ones to the elderly in the neighborhood. Suddenly, the phone in my apron pocket vibrated. I took it out and saw it was Jelani's number again. I knew it instantly. He had smelled something. Only 3 days left until the party. Just yesterday, the lawyer had called me to tell me that in addition to the $40,000 transferred to the mistress, they had traced $3,500 in cash that Jelani had withdrawn, and that had ended up in a casino's account. It was proof that he had used that money to pay gambling debts. I printed that proof and filed it with the other documents. My intention was to release everything at the party so as not to leave him any room to maneuver. I dried my hands and went to a corner of the store to answer. As usual, I activated the recorder. With him, every precaution was too little. "McKenna, what are you plotting behind my back?" The voice on the other end of the line was a scream that drilled into my ear. He sounded harsher than when he was discovered in the coffee shop, and in the background, the mistress's reproaches could be heard. Surely, they were arguing about the deposit. "I'm warning you. Don't you think about coming to my party to make a scene. Don't even dream about it. If you dare set foot there, you're going to regret it." I leaned against the doorframe, watching neighbors enter and leave the store, and lowered my voice on purpose to seem scared. "What are you talking about? What time am I going to have to make a scene? I'm working at the store every day now. I don't have a free minute. How am I going to have time to worry about your things? Don't give me stories." He didn't believe me. His voice became more and more pressing. "Someone from the hotel told me, someone has been asking for details of my party. Who else is it going to be if not you? My mother went to the market yesterday and the neighbors told her. They say you've hired a lawyer to sue me. Isn't it that you want to humiliate me at the party? Maka, I advise you, don't push it. We're already divorced. Do you really want this to end so badly?" Inside, I laughed. It was obvious some rumor had reached him. That's why he was so nervous. I sighed on purpose and said with a slightly offended tone, "I hired a lawyer for the assets issue, not to ruin your party, and your party is a happy day. What motive would I have to go spoil it? Don't worry, I won't go that day. I have to work. The store is very busy." "Really? Swear it." His voice had softened, but he still doubted. "If you trick me, I'll come to your store and mess it up so you can't work." "Why would I trick you?" I lowered my voice, pretending I was worried the owner would hear me. "It cost me a lot to find this job. I just want to work in peace. I don't want more problems. Get married in peace. I assure you, I won't bother you." He asked me a couple more times if I really wouldn't go, and even made me swear it. I doyly told him, "I swear I won't go." On the other end of the line, I heard a sigh of relief and even heard him tell the mistress, "See, I told you she wouldn't come." I almost burst out laughing. The fool truly believed I was afraid he would come to the store to make a scene. If he dared to come, I would call the police immediately. With the warning from last time, I don't think he would dare. After hanging up, I saved the recording and sent a copy to the lawyer and Zuri. Not even 2 minutes passed when Zuri called me. As soon as I answered, she let out a curse word. What a jerk. He's dumb. He still tries to threaten you. And you? What good acting. I almost believed it. I had to act a little so he would relax, I said, smiling. Now he's convinced I won't go to the party out of fear. So when I appear suddenly, he won't have time to react. Oh, how did it go with the hotel manager? How will we enter that day? I talked to him yesterday. That day, he'll send an employee to pick you up and give you a staff ID card. You'll follow that employee, enter through a service door, and wait in a room behind the banquet hall, said Zuri. He's also alerted the MC when he asks the bride and groom if they'll be together for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, he'll pause and give you a signal. Then you come out. My conviction was even stronger. I reviewed with Zuri the evidence we would carry that day. In addition to the transfer statements, the credit card receipts, and the reservation contract I already had, there was the new statement of gambling debts. I organized everything chronologically and put it in a black briefcase. That way, when taking it out, everything would be clear. Upon hanging up, the lawyer also sent me a WhatsApp. That day, I will be at the hotel half an hour early. If any unforeseen event arises, for example, if Mr. Jelani sends someone to block your way, I will handle it. He also sent me the phone number of the nearest police station so I could call at any time. In the afternoon, leaving work, the owner, seeing me checking my phone constantly, asked me concerned. I told her the situation briefly. Upon hearing it, she patted my hand and said, "Maka, don't be afraid. If you need help, I'll tell my husband to accompany you. He's big and has a very loud voice. Surely, he'll intimidate them." I felt warmth in my heart. No, boss. No need to bother your husband. I'm going with my friend and the lawyer. Don't worry. The owner, still uneasy, put a bag of hard-boiled eggs she had just made into my hand, telling me to eat them on the way for strength. She said that day would be very hard. Arriving home, the old cat was waiting for me at the door. I left the briefcase on the coffee table and checked everything one by one. More than 20 transfer statements, each with the date and amount clearly indicated. The credit card receipts organized by months with a red circle on purchases for the mistress. The reservation contract on top to grab it easily. The gambling debt statement inserted in the middle. That was the most compelling proof. I found an old recorder and transferred the audios of Jelani's threats and his mother and sister in case the phone ran out of battery. I also fully charged a power bank and put it in a side pocket. When I finished organizing, I sat on the sofa. The old cat curled up in my lap and purred softly. I stroked his fur. I didn't feel a shred of nervousness. Before, Jelani's threats kept me awake. Now, instead, I was very calm and even felt a certain anticipation for that day. I knew that day would not only be the day I unmasked his true face, but also the day I would completely break with my past and start a new life. He wanted to show off with his party Marian style with his mistress. I in front of everyone was going to reveal his true face, selfish adulterer and gambler, so he would learn that whoever torments me pays the consequences. Before going to bed, I sent a message to the hotel manager to confirm he would prepare the staff ID card. The manager replied, "Don't worry. Everything is ready." I put down the phone and looking at the moon through the window, I thought, "You'll see soon your cover will be blown." That morning, I got up earlier than usual. I chose a dark, elegant jacket and a light gray sweater underneath. I didn't want to draw attention, but not look disheveled either. I just wanted as calmly as possible to say what I had to say. Before leaving the house, I checked the briefcase 3 times. The transfer statements, the credit card receipts, the reservation contract, the debt statement, the recorder, the power bank. Nothing was missing. The old cat sitting at the door rubbed against my shoes as if wanting to encourage me. I stroked his head and whispered, "I'll be right back." As we had agreed, I arrived in the vicinity of the hotel an hour early. The lawyer was already waiting on the sidewalk with a black leather briefcase containing copies of all the evidence. A few minutes later, Zuri arrived, so I wouldn't get tired of standing. She had brought a small folding chair. The three of us entered a nearby convenience store and sat for a while. The lawyer reviewed the plan with me one more time. Then follow the employee. Enter through the service door and wait in a corner behind the banquet hall. When the MC gives you the signal, stand up, but without rushing, and present the evidence one by one. First the reservation contract, then the transfer statements, and finally play the audio. Don't lose the rhythm. At 10:30, the employee sent by the manager arrived. She was a young girl in her 20s. She handed me a staff ID card. "Ma'am, follow me. The director told me to have you wait a moment in the break room in the back, and when the MC is going to read the vows, I'll come get you." I followed her inside. In the hallway, the music coming from the banquet hall echoed. A mix of cheerful songs and guests' laughter created a very lively atmosphere, a total contrast to the heavy briefcase I carried in my hand. The break room wasn't big, just had 2 sofas. The girl poured me a glass of warm water. "Don't get nervous. The director told me if anything happens to call him." I nodded and took the glass. My hands were a little cold, but my heart was steady. The ones who should be nervous weren't me, but the couple on stage performing a farce. Around 11:30, the music outside suddenly changed from cheerful songs to the solemn wedding march. The girl opened the door and entered. "Ma'am, the bride and groom have already entered. In 10 minutes, the MC will read the vows." I got up, moved my fingers, and left the briefcase zipper slightly open to be able to pull out the evidence easily later. A moment later, through the crack in the door, I heard the MC's voice. It was a warm and clear voice. "Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, today is the big day for the groom and bride. In the presence of so many family and friends, I ask you both. Do you swear that in the future, for richer or poorer, in sickness or in health, you will always be by each other's side, never abandoning one another?" It was the moment. I felt a knot in my stomach. Quickly, I followed the girl out of the break room and stealthily entered the banquet hall through a back door. The guests in the back rows were almost all looking at the stage, so they barely noticed me. I advanced slowly down the aisle. About 20 or 25 feet from the stage, the MC asked again, "Groom and bride, do you swear?" Galani, in an impeccable suit and a radiant smile, was about to open his mouth. "I do not agree." I cleared my voice. It wasn't a shout, but loud enough for the people around to hear me. "He does not agree. He hasn't even paid the deposit for this party. With what right is he going to swear not to abandon anyone?" My words caused a deathly silence in the hall. The music stopped and all eyes fixed on me. Jelani's smile froze on his face. He turned to look at me with eyes wide as saucers and said with a trembling voice, "Maka, what are you doing here? You said you wouldn't come and you believed it." I advanced step by step until I stood below the stage. I took the reservation contract out of the briefcase and showed it to everyone. "Look at this contract here. It specifies clearly that the total cost of this party exceeds $75,000 and that the deposit to be paid was $15,000. But he has actually only paid $7,000, and as of today he still owes the remaining $8,000. Yesterday, the hotel was calling him to claim them, warning him that if he didn't pay, the party would be cancelled. He told the bride he would give her a $75,000 party and told everyone he was a successful man, but in reality, he couldn't even gather the deposit. If this isn't deceiving you, what is? Below the stage, a commotion broke out immediately. The guests began to murmur, "Really? Celebrating a party without having paid even the deposit? What a fraud." The mistress in her white wedding dress was about to have all her makeup run. She grabbed Jelani by the arm and whispered, "Jelani? Is what that woman says true? You told me you had paid the full deposit." Jelani, nervous, pointed at me and shouted, "Liar. I paid it all a long time ago. That contract is fake. You just came here to make a scene. Fake. I took out the hotel bank statement where the deposit of only $7,000 was clearly recorded. Look, this is the hotel statement. Only $7,000 have been deposited. Where did the $15,000 come from? If you paid it all, show the transfer receipt. Jelani's face turned red. He searched his pockets, but after a good while, he didn't pull out any proof. He couldn't. At that moment, my mother-in-law, who was sitting among the guests, stood up, pointed at me, and shouted, "Harpy, you came on purpose to ruin my son's party. You're going to get it." She tried to lunge at me, but the lawyer stopped her quickly. "Ma'am, please calm down. Let's talk things over calmly. If you try to assault my client, we will call the police." My mother-in-law, upon being stopped by the lawyer, threw herself on the floor again, ready to cry and scream. But this time, no one paid attention to her. All the guests were commenting on Jelani's story. I ignored my mother-in-law and took out another folder of statements, the proof of Jelani's asset diversion. And look at this. Between May and October of last year, he transferred a total of 5 times our joint assets, $75,000, to his personal account. Of that money, $40,000. He used to buy the bride who was here present handbags, necklaces, and the wedding dress. The other $35,000 he used to pay gambling debts. Surely you didn't know. Not only is he an adulterer, but also a gambler with quite a few debts. Those $75,000 were the money we had saved together. Money my family contributed and that I earned with my effort managing the business. He diverted it without consulting me and used it for this. Tell me, do you think he has the right to pronounce the words, "I won't abandon you"? These words caused an even greater commotion below the stage. Some of Jelani's relatives frowned and commented, "Jelani gambles, too. That's not right. And using his wife's money to spend on the mistress? How shameful." The mistress's face went completely white. She let go of Jelani's hand and said with a trembling voice, "You tricked me. You told me you had earned that money yourself, and on top of that, you gamble and have debts." Jelani tried to excuse himself, but he stammered and couldn't articulate a word. Sweat was pouring down him. I took out my phone again, played the recording of his threats, and turned up the volume. Listen to this. It's a call he made to me the other time to threaten me. "If you don't reactivate the cards, I'll come to your house every day to make a scene, and I won't let you live in peace," he told me. And I also have the recording of his mother and sister coming to my house to break things. Tell me, does this seem like a way to get along? The insults and growls from the recording echoed clearly. The way the guests looked at Jelani changed from congratulation to contempt. An important client of the business stood up and said, "Jelani, I thought you were a decent person and that's why I did business with you, but not only have you cheated on your wife, but you also gamble. This business is over." With that, he turned around and left. Other clients also stood up, shook their heads, and walked out. The mistress, seeing this scene, burst into tears, suddenly ripped the veil off her head, and threw it on the floor. "It's over. You tricked me. You promised me a $75,000 party without having a dime. You're a scammer." She ran to get off the stage, but the hem of her dress caught on a chair, and she tripped. The dust-stained dress looked pitiful. Jelani ran to help her, but she pushed his hand away and ran out crying. The guests below the stage also began to leave one after another. Some passing by pointed at Jelani and said, "What a shame. Better not to deal with people like that." My mother-in-law sitting on the floor cried looking at the ceiling, and Bisa next to her with a pale face didn't say a word. The MC on stage stood with the microphone in his hand, stunned. He had hosted countless weddings, but he had never seen such a chaotic spectacle. The hotel manager came out from the back, approached Jelani, and handed him a bill. "Mr. Jelani, the deposit is still pending, and now that the party has ended like this, you will have to be responsible for damages to the hotel. Several of the guests' tables that have left haven't been touched, so you will also have to pay for the food." Galani, looking at the empty banquet hall and then the bill in his hand, suddenly felt his legs fail him and almost collapsed, muttering, "It's over. It's all over." Seeing his state, I didn't feel a shred of compassion, only a lightness, as if I had completely liberated myself. I put the evidence back in the briefcase, looked at my lawyer and Zuri, and turned to leave. Passing by my mother-in-law, she was still crying. I didn't stop or look back. Those horrible people and their problems from this moment on had nothing to do with me anymore. Leaving the hotel, the sun shone warmly. Zuri patted my shoulder and said, smiling, "Maka, today you were great, you unmasked them completely." The lawyer also nodded. The timing and rhythm of presenting the evidence were perfect. Now he won't be able to deny anything. I let out a deep sigh and looked at the street in the distance. I felt light as a feather. The injustice that had crushed me for 20 years had finally dissipated today. The days left to me would no longer revolve around a horrible man and an evil mother-in-law. I wouldn't have to endure anymore. I could work in peace and live a life in peace. I was going to live for myself for once. That day, returning from the hotel, the sun lengthened my shadow. Zuri gave me a bottle of iced tea. I opened it and taking a sip, the cool and sweet taste ran down my throat, and I felt the bitterness accumulated over 20 years finally dissipate. The lawyer told me he would reorganize the evidence to request a forced execution order from the court, so Jelani would return as soon as possible the $75,000 he had diverted, the compensation for damages to the hotel, and the marital assets that still hadn't been divided without missing a single cent. The three of us didn't stay long. We went to a small soul food spot and ordered 3 hot plates. While we ate and chatted, no one mentioned Jelani's family. They weren't worth it. About 2 weeks later, I received a call from the lawyer. The court had issued the execution order. Jelani had 15 days to return the $75,000 of marital assets and pay the hotel about $7,000 in compensation. As the party had been ruined, the hotel had to refund the deposit for some tables and clean up the mess. I asked the lawyer, and if he doesn't pay, what happens? The lawyer smiled and said, "Do you think he'll dare not to pay now? His supply business without customers closed a while ago, and he owes more than $7,000 in merchandise to a supplier. If he doesn't pay us, the court will seize the car that is in his name. Then he won't even have a way to get around." Later, I found out from neighbors that to pay the debts, Jelani sold the car for over $12,000. He paid part to us, another to the supplier, and with what was left, he couldn't even pay rent, so he ended up moving into a small, dark basement on the outskirts. Nothing to do with the ostentation of before. Someone saw him at the market in an old faded jacket, hesitating in front of a stall of cheap vegetables. Nothing remained of that businessman. He tried to look for a job as a delivery driver, but no one wanted to hire him upon knowing his rumors of adultery and gambling. With his reputation on the floor, his future had also become bleak. The mistress, since leaving the banquet hall crying, didn't contact Galani again. A friend of Zuri saw her in a supermarket in a town wearing an employee uniform pushing a cart and stocking merchandise. She no longer sported shiny necklaces or designer bags. Apparently, upon returning to her town and telling everything, her mother got very angry, scolded her well, and told her to forget about living off men and find a decent job. Later, it was rumored she was dating a stock boy from the supermarket. A normal life. But at least she didn't dream of $75,000 weddings anymore. In the end, she must have learned that appearances built with other people's money sooner or later crumble. My mother-in-law and Bice's situation wasn't better. My mother-in-law's $600 monthly pension used to go entirely to her son and daughter. Now, with the son in debt and the daughter with no one to mooch off of, they started blaming each other. Once going to the market, I found them arguing. Bice said, "It's all your fault, Mama. By spoiling my brother so much, he ended up cheating on her. And now look, I can't even buy myself a new dress." My mother-in-law, crying, replied, "And if you hadn't been taking money from your brother every day, would we have reached this point?" The two argued with red faces, and passers-by stopped to look, but no one separated them. Before when they tormented me, the neighbors saw everything. Now that they were in that situation, it was the result of their own actions. Later, I found out my mother-in-law entered the hospital, but Baisa didn't pay the bill, and Jelani had no money either. In the end, some lifelong friends of my mother-in-law took up a collection to pay the expenses. Upon leaving the hospital, my mother-in-law lived alone and sad in her old house, and nothing remained of her former haughtiness. My life, on the other hand, was getting better and better. After half a year working at the organic market, the owner, seeing I did well, not only raised my salary to $3,000, but also put me in charge of purchasing and inventory management. Later, she hired 2 part-time employees so I wouldn't have to go so early for the merchandise. The neighbors loved buying at our store. They said the vegetables I chose were fresh and cheap. Sometimes if an elderly person forgot money, I told them to take it and pay me another day. Over time, I became friends with everyone. For example, Ms. Ada came every day for greens and sometimes brought me biscuits she made herself. Mr. Anthony liked ripe apples, so I always saved some for him. In my free time, I walked with Zuri in the park, or on weekends, we went on trips to the surroundings. Last fall, we went to see the leaves on the trees, standing at the top of a mountain, looking at the forest of maples in intense red, and feeling the fresh breeze. My heart was at peace. The old cat at home had also gained a lot of weight. Every afternoon when I returned from work, he waited for me at the door, and as soon as I opened it, he ran to rub against my legs and sometimes brought me a toy to play with him. Before, my house was always full of arguments. Now finally, I lived a quiet life. Once Missa, chatting with me, told me her daughter was arguing a lot lately with her husband, that the son-in-law mistreated her, and the daughter didn't dare defend herself. She didn't know what to do. After thinking for a moment, based on my experience, I gave her some sincere advice. First, whoever you live with, always keep receipts and house documents. Don't think, as I did before, that trust is enough in a marriage. When you have to defend your rights, those are the most effective proofs. If I hadn't kept the store ledgers and credit card receipts, I never would have recovered that money. Second, if you encounter someone who mistreats you, don't endure it. If you endure once, they'll take you for a fool, and next time they'll be worse. I used to endure my ex-husband and mother-in-law, and the result was that each time they crossed the line more. When I stopped enduring, called the police when I had to, and hired a lawyer, they couldn't do anything to me. Third, a woman at any age should have her own job. Having money in hand gives you security. If I hadn't worked in this store after the divorce, I wouldn't have had money to pay rent, much less to fight for the assets. Economic independence gives you a voice and stability in life. Fourth, a true friend is worth more than anything. During all this time, if Zuri hadn't found me a lawyer in a job, if the lawyer hadn't defended my rights, if the store owner hadn't taken care of me, I never would have overcome it. If you surround yourself with good friends and help each other in difficult times, life is much easier. And fifth, if a marriage is truly irreparable, don't cling to it. It's better to cut your losses. I endured 3 more years with my ex-husband, but the more I endured, the more injustice and pain I felt. After the divorce, I went through many difficulties, but the life I have now is 100 times calmer than before. Life is only a few decades. Don't torment yourself over someone who isn't worth it. Ms. Ada, after listening to me, nodded. You're right. Before I thought that by enduring a little, things would pass. But now I see they don't. The truth is these words were lessons I had learned based on experience, mistakes, realizing what is important and tasting pain to know how to live. Now every morning I go early to the store, arrange the fresh vegetables and fruits. Seeing the neighbors come to buy and chat animatedly fills me with satisfaction. At night upon closing the store and returning home, I prepare a bowl of hot soup and the old cat keeps me company. Watching the streetlights turn on, I feel that life is really worth it. I know everything horrible I went through before was like a nightmare. Now the nightmare is over and dawn has broken. In the days I have left, I will live for myself in a truly happy and peaceful way, better than ever. And so, friends, McKenna's journey comes to an end. An end where justice is not an abstract concept, but a palpable reality. The traitor fell from grace. The greedy paid their price and our brave protagonist found true peace in her new life. But this story leaves us with something more than a satisfying revenge. It shows us the extraordinary power of preparation and determination. Maka's victory was not the result of luck, but of a meticulously kept ledger, carefully saved receipts, and a record button pressed at the right moment. They were the silent weapons she accumulated during her years of patience. And when finally the limit of that patience was reached, they became irrefutable proofs that completely demolished her ex-husband's lies and arrogance. Moreover, McCain's greatest victory was not the moment she unmasked Jelani in the banquet hall, but the quiet mornings at the organic market, the warm afternoons in the company of her old cat, and the freedom of being economically independent and mistress of her own life. She demonstrated that the best revenge is not making the others suffer, but building for oneself a life several times happier. McKenna's story leaves us with a profound lesson. Never underestimate the silence of a woman, because when she decides not to endure anymore, her strength can move mountains and dry seas, and the light of truth will finally defeat the darkness. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.